Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Fordham Sports Analytics Roundup. I am your host and Chief Marketing Officer, Aidan Baysham, joined by members and co-hosts Aeneas Bufai and Bradley Byrne, some new members to the podcast. The previous two episodes, we talked a lot about the MLB playoffs. We did a World Series preview. The baseball world's in a bit of a stalemate right now. Not much going on in the off season. Everybody waiting on what Juan Soto is going to do. I think so. It's time to talk some NFL. We're, knee deep into the season. We had an exciting slate of games last week, and at this point in the year, we're getting a better idea of who the contenders really are and who could be a big threat in the playoffs. And one game this week that gave us a great idea of what the AFC will look like during the playoffs was the Chiefs-Bills game. It was an absolute thriller, absolutely theatric. The battle of Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes that we get every year. It's always a fun watch. And like every year, this one was a close game all the way through. The Bills really got their run game going. James Cook had two rushing TDs. Josh Allen also had a rushing TD on a really clutch 26-yard scramble in addition to his one passing touchdown on the day. Both defenses were pretty good, I think, but that's kind of considered the circumstances of their containing two super offenses. But the Bills would end up winning 30-21, handing the Chiefs their first loss of the season in week 11. So now they're 9-1. And I really think the difference in this game uh, and who won was Josh Allen versus Patrick Mahomes at the end of the day. Patrick Mahomes was outperformed by Allen. Allen went 27 for 40 with 262 yards, two total touchdowns, 55 rush yards, and just one interception. Mahomes went 23 for 33, actually, with 196 passing yards, three passing touchdowns, and two interceptions. So, Aeneas, I'll let you answer this question first, and Bradley, you can follow. What did you see in the game Sunday? Do you think the Bills can, finally dethrone the Chiefs in the AFC in January this year? Do you think this is the year for Bills Mafia?
Yeah, so obviously I wouldn't want it to be the year for Bills Mafia. I mean, I'm a Pats fan, right? But um, you know, I, this game I think we've seen, what the Chiefs really are, that when they don't have the refs helping them out with, I wouldn't say helping them out, but every game they kind of need some sort of call to go their way in order to pull out a win. We saw that against Cincinnati, against the Bucks too. And they also needed a game-winning, blocked field goal just to beat the Broncos, who have Bo Nix playing quarterback. He's been playing well recently. But again, I mean, it's the Broncos. They're not on paper. They're just not. So they're outperforming. They're supposed to not be as good as they are. Um, and if you're almost losing to the Bucks, having to go to overtime to beat the Bucks, who don't have Chris Godwin, they don't have Mike Evans. They're down. Their receiving options are Kate Otten, Sterling Shepard. Um, and you only win by a touchdown against the Raiders. And again, you need a pretty questionable penalty to beat the Bengals. Um, I don't think we could call the Chiefs contenders. Sure, the record might look good, but again, once you get into the nitty gritty, once you look under the surface level on the record, the Chiefs really are pretenders. They're winning games in spite of Mahomes. And a lot of that is because Mahomes he hasn't played well. And his security blanket for the past, well, however long he's been in the league, I think like 8, 7, 6 years at this point. Um, Kelsey, he's started to regress. He's not getting the separation that he used to. Teams are uh, trying to scheme him out more and trying to force him to throw to Xavier Worthy or normally Rashee Rice, but since he's out for injury, now they're making him throw to like Juju, who they picked up off waivers. And with his only real weapon being Worthy, it's made it a little more difficult for Mahomes to operate. And on top of that, if you've been watching the games, and if you've watched the Chiefs game, his mechanics have been a little more sloppy. He's hasn't been driving off of his legs as much as he usually does. Again, these are fixable mistakes, but it's troubling that someone like Mahomes is having these kind of issues. And because of that, he's been trying to coast off of his arm talent that hasn't necessarily been working. I mean, his stat lines the past couple games have been pretty pedestrian. He hasn't played up to the standard that he's normally capable of. And although Kansas City has been winning, it's mostly been in spite of Mahomes, not because of him. And a lot of that comes down to their great defense. But a lot of it too is because they've gotten a lot of calls that have just gone their way. Um, Sometimes that's just the nature of the game, but again, you can't rely on that, especially in January. And that's why I think the Bills they do really have a good chance to beat Kansas City in the playoffs if they even make it that far. Because I could totally see the Chiefs being a first round exit. They could go down the Steelers, who have been surprisingly a very consistent football team. They've got a great defense, great recipe to shut down the Chiefs. Um, and Houston and Baltimore, I think they definitely have the firepower. They definitely have the players. They have the coaching. They have everything they need to beat the Chiefs. And honestly, I think at this point, with this loss, KC finally being exposed for the pretenders that they are, the AFC is wide open. And if this is the year for the Bills, I mean, it might be it.
What about you,
I kind
Bradley?
of
What do you
wanted
think?
to. So first off, I was actually kind of rooting for the Chiefs because then the Panthers had the ability to do the funniest thing next week. That would have been like probably the craziest upset of like the decade arguably. So I was kind of
Yeah.
rooting for the Chiefs a little bit just to see if that would actually happen. I mean, we could still see the Chiefs lose to the Panthers, but it would have been cool for the undefeated run to end by arguably the worst team, one of the worst teams in football. But you kind of said it perfectly. Like the Chiefs have barely been winning games, and Mahomes only has, I believe, 15 touchdowns on 11 interceptions. So he's kind of one in a sense. Like every touchdown, he throws also an interception. But I just kind of feel like the Chiefs are just hanging on by a thread. And I agree with you. The Chiefs can realistically be first round X. Like if the season ended today, hypothetically, and the Chiefs were the 2 seed, because right now they're the first seed, they would be playing the Broncos. And honestly, I could see the Broncos. They almost beat the Chiefs, but obviously the blocked field goal, which I think was a little bit of a fluke. The Broncos really kind of were leading most of that game and kind of struggled a little bit in the second half on offense and should have put it away. But I just think that this was a kink in the armor for the Chiefs, and I kind of feel like this is the starting point of the Chiefs' decline going into December and January, which are the two most important months of the season before obviously you get the Super Bowl in February. But I don't think the Chiefs are going to make the Super Bowl this year. I just feel like that there's too many holes with this team, and I just think it's a fluke, to be honest. They're 9-0. They've kind of barely been beating teams that they're supposed to be blowing out respectfully, but I just think the Chiefs are a little honestly, you put the Chiefs on fraud watch, really, because like they're being hyped as arguably the best team in football, but I don't think they're really a top three team, maybe even top five. You could arguably say that the Chiefs may not even be a top five team. Like if I was to sit down and like look at every team, I could probably come up with five that I would pick over the Chiefs to make the Super Bowl or even win the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think the Chiefs are definitely like they're 9-1 and they're, have one of the best records in the league or the best record in the league. But they do kind of seem like a shell of themselves. And everything you guys say about, them kind of being on fraud watch, potential first round exits, all of that is logical and we have a ton of reasons to think that. But, Aeneas, you might not know this because you're a Patriots fan because Tom Brady did it, but Patrick Mahomes has like this devil magic that Tom Brady
Yep.
had where just everything goes right for him. That it's happened to the Chiefs this year. They, like we said, they won a few games off of that, and it happens in the playoffs all the time too. It used to be the Patriots, but now it's the Chiefs. Now Patrick Mahomes is the boogeyman, but he's not exactly, himself this year. As you guys said, he only has 15 touchdowns on 11 interceptions. And, another angle to take from that game is the MVP race that we've been watching unfold this year. It's kind of your usual suspects as the candidates now. Josh Allen and Mahomes, of course, both big candidates. You also got Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts, I guess maybe Jared Goff and Kyler Murray. But I think if we learned anything this week, it's that, Mahomes is definitely lagging in that race, and Josh Allen really proved why he's a very, very deserving candidate. On the season, he has 2,543 passing yards, a 63.3 completion percentage, 316 rushing yards, 23 total TDs, and only 5 interceptions. That's kind of been a problem for Allen in his career, is interceptions, but he's definitely managed it of late. Mahomes has 2,400 passing yards with a 69.5 completion percentage, 139 rushing, 16 total TDs or maybe 15 total TDs. I'm trying to, I don't know if it's 15 or 16. I'll have to check that. But he has those 11 interceptions, but really someone who's, the big threat to Josh Allen, I think it's a race between these two is Lamar Jackson. He has 2,876 passing yards, a 67% completion percentage, 584 rushing yards. That's pretty crazy. 27 total touchdowns and only 3 interceptions. So he's really managing those INTs very well. And then you go and you look at their EPA, their expected points added. Jackson has 119.2. He leads the NFL, and Allen has 97.5 in second. Interestingly enough, Jackson's EPA via passing is 122.2, and it's actually brought down to 119 by his negative 3.1 rushing EPA. So all of those running back allegations, you could throw those out the window. And Josh Allen actually has the higher rushing EPA at 29.9. So it's a little backwards this year. So, Bradley, what do you think? Do you think Lamar is going to run away with it, or do you think Josh Allen is kind of giving him a run for his money now, and it's really a two-horse race? And then
So bef-
Aeneas, you of course follow.
So before I talk about Lamar versus Allen, I just wanted to give credit to two players. First off, Saquon. I feel like obviously we talk about the MVP as a quarterback award, but I just feel like Saquon and Henry don't get enough credit. Like Saquon is second in rushing yards, first in total yards per game, and sixth in touchdowns. And that's what Jalen Hurts with the overhyped play tush push, constantly getting those rushing touchdowns. So I think Saquon should realistically have more than 10 because Hurts, I think, is leading the league in total touchdowns or is at least top three. And then Derrick Henry. I think he's been the RB1 this year, first in rushing yards, first in yards per game, and okay, so he is first in total touchdowns, I believe, and he has one of the longest plays this year. So I just feel like obviously we talk about it as a quarterback award, but I just wanted to give two shout outs to who I personally think have been the two best players in football right now. But unless you're LaDainian Tomlinson or Emmitt Smith or Walter Payton, you're probably not winning MVP. But I think Lamar is there unless Lamar has an absolute unless he absolutely falls apart the remainder of the season and Josh Allen kind of goes on a tear, I kind of see Lamar getting another MVP. But also an honorable mention is Jade Daniels. He has been, as a rookie, he's been really, really good. And he may not get a lot of votes, but I think there may be some voters who may put a vote in for Jaden Daniels. So I just wanted to give a few shout outs to honorable mentions who may get votes. But in my opinion, I think Lamar's going to go back to back and win the MVP.
Yeah, I think I'd be a little inclined to agree with that, but I don't think it'll be any I don't think any one player is gonna run away with it. I don't think Josh Allen is gonna run away with it. I don't think Lamar is. I think it'll probably be a close race. And again, it's only midway point to the season. There's still a lot of football left, so a lot of stuff can happen between now and award season. But honestly, I think my top three are probably Josh Allen, Lamar, and Jared Goff is, I think, my dark horse for MVP. He's been having a great season. But again, like MVP is a quarterback award, so realistically, Saquon, Derrick Henry, as deserving as they are, I do think they are, honestly, a lot more deserving than, some guys on the MVP shortlist, like Mahomes, obviously. He's always there, despite the fact that he has no reason to be on there. Saquon and Derrick Henry, I think, should definitely be in the conversation a little more. And I think, it'd be good for the game to have a non-quarterback MVP to, base it more off of whether or not, how dominant a player is as opposed to positional value, which gets, I think, factored in a little too much when deciding MVP. Because quarterback, sometimes, especially like last year, like I honestly think Christian McCaffrey should have won MVP instead of Lamar. I think he was a lot more valuable to 49ers, but I'm going off on a bit of a tangent. But for this year right now, I think it'll be really even. And honestly, I do kind of lean a little more to the Josh Allen side. For MVP, I don't think Lamar is going to fall off a cliff per se. He might be a little more efficient, but just based on just a roster standpoint, I think that Josh Allen is a little more valuable to the Bills than Lamar is to the Ravens, considering the fact that the offense pretty much just runs through Josh Allen. It runs through Josh Allen. I don't think there's much debate for that. He is what makes that offense tick. And Lamar, I think the fact that, you can have that offense run at a really high level with him, maybe not at his best, running it through Derrick Henry, it'll be just fine. I think that's a bit of a knock on Lamar for his MVP chances. And, I just think that Josh Allen is a little more valuable to the Bills than Lamar is to the Ravens. And that's no discredit to Lamar. He's a fantastic quarterback. He's an amazing quarterback. He's doing stuff that we've never seen before, but so is Josh Allen. And I think at that point, it's really a coin flip, and it could go either way. But don't be surprised if Jared Goff gets a little more noise in the MVP conversation. I mean, he just had a 4 touchdown game against the Jags. He's been incredibly efficient, and he's the quarterback for the best team in football. I think the Lions. When that team gets going, there's not really much you can do to stop it. Both sides of the ball, and the offense is a big credit for that, and a lot of it is because of how Goff has been playing, and he's showing that. And he's not just a game manager; he's a little more than that. He's proving that pocket passers aren't game managers, because in my opinion, they're not. Goff is a bit of a field general. He helps make that offense run, and that's exactly what you want out of your quarterback. And he's doing that, and he's delivering at a very high level with limited volume when you compare that to Lamar and Josh Allen. But he's getting that similar production. He's a little more efficient than both of them. I think that goes a long way in it. And sure, you might give the argument that, if Jared Goff, were to be replaced by any other quarterback, they might, they perform to a comparable level, but I don't think that's true. I think Goff has really developed into a really good quarterback, and he's proving that he's a little more than a game manager. Speaking of like dark horse awards, I think Drake May would want a dark horse rookie of the year run. I think he's been a great rookie quarterback so far. I mean, they might not be winning a ton of games, but they're definitely not losing games because of Drake May. And, based on the weapons around him, he shouldn't be performing the way that he is, but he is. Don't be surprised come award season if Drake May is up there with Jaden Daniels. But anyway, those are my 2 cents on the awards.
Yeah, I mean, Jaden Daniels definitely has the strongest case there, but I do think Drake May is putting together a dark horse campaign, and there's plenty of season left for him, to make that campaign even stronger. But enough about good football players. Now we're going to talk about the bad football teams, which is our native teams, the New York teams here at Fordham. Uh, Mainly going to talk about the Giants. We'll leave the Jets for another time because that could take a whole episode if we really wanted to. But Daniel Jones has been benched. Really after long last, he's been terrible for some time now, barring that 2022 season. He's got 2,000 passing yards on the year, 63.3 completion percentage, 265 rush yards, only 8 TDs and 7 interceptions, a negative 24.5 EPA. So yeah, he's really bad. Last year he had a negative 59 EPA in only 6 games with 6 interceptions and 2 passing TDs. So it's been a long time coming for Giants fans. They've wanted to see this for a long time. He's been really bad for almost his entire career. And like I said, he had that good 2022, but it fooled the Giants into giving him an extension, and now they're really regretting it. And they got Tommy DeVito or Tommy Cutlets taking over at starting QB, who, I don't know what the Giants are going to do, guys. They are really in a bad position. They're not just a quarterback away, it seems. They currently hold the 4th pick in the NFL draft, and Daniel Jones being benched is waving their white flag on the year. And maybe for this regime, Brian Dable's job is on the line. I'm sure GM Joe Shane's job is on the line. So Bradley, I'll let you take this question first, since you're the Giants fan in the room. Do you think they're going to blow it all up? Like, what do you think their course of action should be in setting up for next season and beyond?
So I'm kind of torn because obviously I think this is the last season where the Giants actually owe Daniel Jones guaranteed money. I think it's either this year or next year. So after that, they can let him go. He has probably zero trade value, so they'll probably just drop him and eat. I guess eat. Well, they've been eating the money, but I guess they'll finish eating it. But I'm kind of torn because I just don't think Tommy DeVito can be a long-term quarterback for the Giants, even if he plays well for the remainder of the season. I just don't see him being a long-term starter. But although this quarterback class, obviously, we know that it's not really that good or impressive, I just think drafting a quarterback is better than relying on Tommy DeVito. Me personally, I think the Giants should go out and draft Cam Ward, who's honestly is one of my top three Heisman candidates. He has 3,500 passing yards, 32 TDs on 6 interceptions, and almost 400 passing yards a game. So I feel like there's a bigger risk with Tommy DeVito just because we've seen him play and he's not all that. I just think the Giants have a good defense. They're number one in sacks. They have Malik Neighbors, who is probably a top three rookie of the year candidate. Obviously, as a biased Giants fan, I have to mention that. And then you have Tyrone Tracy, who I think has a lot of upside. I just think that the Giants' biggest hole, besides the offensive line, is the quarterback. I think the quarterback needs more attention now than the offensive line because if you rely on Tommy DeVito, I just don't think that's a viable option. So Shador Sanders will probably be gone earlier than the fourth pick just because the Panthers might honestly go with a quarterback because we don't know the future of Bryce Young. So I just think the Giants should take Cam Ward. I know it's like risky relying on a rookie now with so many holes with his team, but I just don't think Tommy DeVito is the long-term option. And a quarterback right now is more important than the offensive line, in my opinion. But unless Travis Hunter can play quarterback. If he could play quarterback, then why not try? I mean, he already plays wide receiver and cornerback. Why not add one more position? You know, he would probably play better than Daniel Jones if he played quarterback. Like if my
I
season was
mean,
on the line, I'd rather have Travis Hunter at quarterback than Daniel Jones. How that's how sad it is with the Giants.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I think I'd be inclined to agree with that take. I mean, I think any regular guy off the street could probably turn in a better game than Daniel Jones does, even if they hand the ball off like 50 times. Um, he'd probably screw that up somehow. I mean, it was beyond me why the Giants decided to take Daniel Jones at number 6. And I think that, if they do go quarterback, I think they might be making the same mistake because, as like you said, the quarterback class this year, it's not the prospect pedigree. This isn't there that we've seen in recent years. And honestly, I wouldn't feel comfortable putting a rookie quarterback into the situation that the Giants are in, especially because these are not blue chip can't miss prospects like Caleb Williams was last year, like Drake May was last year, like Jane Daniels was last year, and even Bryce Young. I wouldn't trust, any of these quarterbacks in this class to go in and be able to succeed. And I think if the Giants were to go ahead and take a quarterback, I think it benefit them to just sit them for a whole year and let them build out the roster to make it more hospitable for the quarterback the next year and to be able to, have a veteran teach the young QB the ropes. And I think that's kind of indicative of the position that the Giants are in. And I think it would warrant them to blow everything up right now and just embrace the rebuild. This period of protracted mediocrity just isn't very productive. Would you rather go like 6-11 this year, or go and have the ninth pick in the draft for the next like 3-4 years, or would you rather tank right now, tank next year, get two really great players that can turn the franchise around and start contending a little bit down the line? I think it's a little more productive. But I do think that Brian Dable should stay. I think he's a good head coach. He's been dealt a really bad hand. And I don't think it'd be fair just to fire him outright. I don't really think any any head coach, no matter how good they were, would succeed with this Giants team. I don't think it'd be possible. So I do think they should give him a little more time on this project. But Joe Scone, I think he's got to go. He hasn't done a great job building out the roster, and I think you do need a bit of change somewhere. And signing Daniel Jones to that mega deal that he's currently on, really out of desperation, is proof enough that he's got to go. But instead of going quarterback, because again, the quarterbacks in this class, they hold the ball a little too long, they struggle with accuracy and timing. Just based on a physical profile, they're not as intimidating as in prior years, although Milrow is an exceptional athlete. Um, he would be a great asset, but again, he holds the ball a little too long. He struggles with timing, and his accuracy isn't really there in the short and intermediate areas. And given that their biggest problem is offensive line, and given the fact that a young quarterback does need a good offensive line to be able to succeed, I think would warrant taking a tackle this year. I know the tackle class isn't as good as it's been recently, but I think the tackle class is a little bit better than the quarterbacks that are currently available. And I think, even taking a Will Campbell, I know he's got some short arms, so he'll probably move into guard. He'd be a really great interior offensive lineman, and you could go out and pursue a really good tackle on the free agent market, or maybe make a trade Dexter Lawrence, or um, make a trade Dexter Lawrence while his value is still there and try to secure a top tackle for your quarterback. I know that's a little bit extreme, but if we're embracing the rebuild, some of these, some of the great players that the Giants have, some of them have to go just to be able to give the team enough capital to rebuild itself. Calvin Banks would also be worth taking a look too. And Ursary, I think he's a pretty solid tackle. So I think really the focus should be on building the team up, building all areas of the team, making it as friendly as possible for you to insert a QB, a young QB, a rookie QB that can be plugged in and instantly succeed. And I think that's certainly possible given the fact that Arch Manning is going to be coming up soon. I think if the Giants kept tanking, they'd probably have a good shot to secure Arch Manning. And him and Malik Neighbors him behind a good offensive line. I mean, that's a scary thing to think about for the rest of the NFL. So that's just my take on that.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I think it's really the Giants have kind of been delaying the inevitable with how they're setting up their team in the past couple of years. They've been holding on to a thread with Daniel Jones. He had that good 2022, but no one was really that fooled by it. And then last year was absolutely disastrous. And you know, it seemed like everyone in the Giants fan base was like, you can't rely on this guy. And then, Giants fans were hoping to get the highest pick they could last year, but Tommy DeVito did kind of ruin that tank for them, and you know now they didn't get a chance to have Drake May or Jaden Daniels, and they're kind of really stuck right now, and this is going to be a really foundational season for them next year, where I think they kind of just need to build up a team, like you said, that's friendly for a quarterback in the next not this year's draft that's coming up, but the year after, or perhaps even the year after that. So it's really it's a bad time to be a Giants fan, but don't worry, Giants fans, it's just as bad a time to be a Jets fan. But that's all we got for you today on today's episode of the Fordham Sports Analytics Roundup. We hope you enjoyed the episode. We hope you enjoyed that we're talking some NFL now. We want to mix in, basketball as well. I'm sure MLB rumors are going to heat up soon as well with winter meetings coming up, and things are starting to move a little bit, we can see. But make sure to subscribe and follow us on all our socials. I'm Aiden Baychamp. That's Aeneas Buffy. Buffy, sorry, and Bradley Byrne, and we'll see you on the next one.